Hey, it's James from 4x4 Earth, and welcome to track 49 of the 4x4 Earth podcast, Land Access with Shane Rose from 4-Wheel Drive Australia.
Join James from 4x4earth.com as he learns all there is to know about four-wheel driving, camping, fishing, and getting out and exploring our great country on the 4x4 Earth podcast.
Welcome back, everyone. Next episode, it's out. We're starting to hit our straps now. We're going to continue on our chat with the president of 4-Wheel Drive Australia. He's been 4-wheel driving for a very long time, very experienced in some of the issues that are affecting the 4-wheel drive community. And I think it's great that we've got someone willing to come on the podcast, talk about these issues so that, we've got a bit more insight about what we can do around track access, land access, keeping the tracks open, ensuring that not only us, but our families, but our kids, our grandkids are going to be able to go out. They're going to be able to go out and do the tracks that we love. They're going to be able to go camping in the places that we love. And they're going to be able to go out and do the kind of things that we love to do when we go off-road. So here is the rest of our interview with Shane Rose. So do you want to talk briefly about the 4-Wheel Drive Victoria's reaction? So that we're talking about the VEAC report that's actually looking at some of these closures.
Yes.
What's 4-Wheel Drive Victoria doing to sort of maintain access?
Well, one of the things I suppose you remember is that 4-Wheel Drive Victoria really has to answer to its members. Okay, so it's very important to know that the members actually, not only do they do get government funding, but the members actually pay them fees and they expect things for that. One of the main charters is to keep areas open. The offshoot of that is that because 4-Wheel Drive Victoria does work in these areas and does have direct contact with these people and good relationships, is that we should be able to utilise that to be able to maintain access for all people. So the offshoot of 4-Wheel Drive Victoria going in and saying, yes, we can keep tracks open and we can do this and we can negotiate things for you, the benefit of that is that other land users should also get that benefit. And I don't really believe that they're going out there to deliberately try and go against other land users. But I think they've also been very careful that their members are the people that put them in their position. So therefore, they have to make sure they follow through with what their charter is, which is keeping land open for 4-wheel drive users to use. I think what we've got to be careful of, though, as associations of 4-wheel drivers, is that we need to start realising that there's more people than just people that go on 4-wheel drive trips. It's a much bigger demographic than that we need to start encompassing when we're looking at what to do. So I think that from that point of view, I know Victoria is definitely, they're doing the right thing. I mean, they're not wanting to do the wrong thing. They've got, thousands of members there seeing them, pushing them to do the right thing. And if they don't do the right thing, then the executive there won't be there. They'll move them on. So I'm certain that in their hearts, they want to do the right thing. I think that, and I don't believe that they're conflicted with, like it has been said, that they're conflicted because they do get some funding, because that funding isn't relying on the fact that they have to approve everything that people say from those departments. That funding has a very clear set of KPIs that outlines what they have to achieve, and it's more around the fact that they have to give back. They have to do cleaning things, they have to do things over here. They've got lots of KPIs they have to follow through to be able to achieve those funds, and none of those KPIs are revolving around the fact that if the department puts up that they want to have more national parks, they have to agree to it. It's definitely not along those lines. But definitely when they ever go into negotiations, like as myself as 4-Wheel Drive Australia, what I'm very keen to do is make sure that areas are kept open for public land users. That's very important. I think the thing here is probably a little bit more, I think it's been out of skew because we've got already a public land that they want to change the designation of what the public land is. So therefore what that means is that from 4-Wheel Drive Victoria's point of view, they want to ensure that there's still access to those areas for people. Unfortunately, what falls off is that, as I said before, that the parks themselves have more restrictive rules. So is this a good thing to move from one public style of land or one designation to another? I think that as you've said before, James, there needs to be a lot more information provided around what damage it's going to do to the local economies, what damage it's going to do to the forestry industry itself, and on the other side, what benefits are there for having a park? I don't see a lot of benefits for changing something from a forest to a national park. I don't see a lot of benefits to that. I see it's more restrictive. I don't see the benefits. If, however, you've got, and I don't know this in Victoria, maybe you can highlight this, shed some light on this, but if you've got the forestry saying, you know what, that area there, we don't really want it anymore because we can't do anything with it, it's not helping us in any way, and we want the parks to take it off us, that could be a slightly different thing happening there, but that's not what I'm hearing or reading. That's not my belief, James. Can you shed some light back on that?
Not really, and I'm actually planning on talking to the guys from Bugview as well, because I think they're tracking this a lot more closely, and they've read through the VEAC submission. But I think that there's a couple of things in there. The first one is the concept of user pays. I don't really see that. Like, at the end of the day, it is user pays, whether it's through taxes, whether it's through an entry fee. The other thing that I'm quite passionate about is that we, as the users, we should be maybe take a little bit more rubbish out than we brought in. Maybe, doing a little bit of work like we did out at O'Toole's, where we actually provided some infrastructure so that the camping there was a bit more sustainable and easier for parks to be able to manage.
Yeah, and I agree with that definitely. What you're saying is right. I mean, this comes back to give and take, okay? If we as users want to be able to keep using areas, we have to be responsible with how we use it, but we also have to give back. And the way we give back is that we leave areas cleaner than what we got there. And this is some of the stuff that Forward Drive Australia and Forward Drive Victoria have as their codes of conduct. And then we also work with parks and that to be able to help them, or even if it's forestry, anybody be able to actually help them to make the areas more sustainable for use by us, which means we can do things like toilet blocks, shelters, track clearing, all these sorts of things that cost money as a group. It's much easier for us as a group to go in there and do things like, so there's been some erosion to a track, it's very difficult to get machinery in there. Instead of closing that track, let's get a group together, get in there and actually do the repairs by hand. Now, old school way, get in there and actually do some repairs. In Queensland here, we've done a lot of that up here. We actually have tracks up here, adopted tracks we call them. We do this with parks, and we go in there with the parks up here. There's been damage, and the clubs go in there with a park ranger because we have insurance in place, which means we can do this like Victoria does. We go in there and we actually help as a large group of people to actually rebuild culverts and things by hand so that the tracks are kept open. Now, by doing that, that means that those people then go, well, they're here putting back, so we end up getting more. But this thing that's happening in Victoria is we've got a different thing happening here. This is about changing who the land controller is. And what we're going to work out is that the best thing? That's my question. Is it the best thing? So, I think I haven't seen, I've read bits and pieces and read through what people are saying, but I haven't seen anything that categorically says we need to change it from a forestry to a park because of these reasons here, and then having everything that backs that up. That's what I think is different in this particular case. It's not about, it's already open. Theoretically, it's still going to be open for people to access, but some user groups won't have the access they used to have, which I don't think is good. But at the end of the day, we're talking about a change of who manages land, and we've got to really work out whether that's actually in the benefit of the state and the public, or whether it's just to the benefit of politicians trying to win votes. That's what we need to be careful of. Is this about securing more votes, or is this what's actually better? That's the question.
Exactly. So we've talked a bit about track closures. Is there anything that you're seeing nationally around track openings?
Yeah, we are. We're actually getting some really good traction in other states and territories. So, for instance, in the Northern Territory, they've got a large push on up there to get more tourists. They want to attract tourists to Northern Territory. They see it as a great industry. Obviously, we've got people that want to tour around and see things. So what they're doing up there is they've enlisted the help of the Northern Territory Forward Drive Association, and they're going out and saying, look, here's this nice water feature, or water creek or dam, whatever, not dam, or I should say a pond, and we'd like to get access to that. So they get the Forward Drive groups up there to actually plot a course. They then let them go in there and drive through, and they're basically going through the bush. And they then, to work out the best track, and then they bring through things to be able to create the track behind them, and they're opening these areas up for the public to go in there. So at the moment, they've done 2 areas up in the Litchfield National Park, And those will become open to the public, I think it's next year, because they're just trialling a few things now and they're getting selected groups going there to actually check things like facilities and bits and pieces and still do more work to make it sustainable. And they're looking at opening up more tracks in that area through this same method with the view for tourism, because they see that's a big benefit to them as a state. If we also go to Western Australia over there, we've got a similar thing happening over there, but slightly different in the fact that in Northern Territory, it's actually the parks working with the four-wheel drive Northern Territory. In Western Australia, it's the Indigenous people. So they've gone over there and they can actually see benefits in having tracks opened up for the public to use. And we've got things like there's a Canning Stock route, there's the Kidman track, and there's some new ones over there they're about to release and open up in conjunction with native landowners to provide more access, more tracks, and also that helps the native landowners receive revenue because there are fees to go on them. But they are also opening up tracks over there, and they're very keen to have meetings with us, more meetings with Four-Wheel Drive Australia and Four-Wheel Drive Western Australia about opening up more areas. So there are definitely some states and territories out there that are all about opening up tracks, and there are definitely being tracks opened up right now around Australia through work that's being done by the four-wheel drive movement, and that's for all users. It's not just for four-wheel drivers only. Anybody can go through there. So we are definitely working in that area. So, and that's a good initiative. But it appears to me, if you look at the areas that are doing it, it's the less populated areas. So you're looking at Western Australia, Northern Territory, our more populated states where there's definitely a lot more, how we say, green-oriented people, more city dwellers. We seem to see that that's not the case. They seem to be wanting to push the other way in those areas that are less rural. And I think you'll see that's across the board. I mean, areas that are rural and you've got farmers and people out there that are sustainably using the environment, they're more about keeping things open and having access compared to people who live in, as you said before, the cities, who have been brought up in cities, they go to their local park, and they don't necessarily see the benefits of these areas outside. So they go, when somebody comes along in a koala suit, in the middle of the city and goes, hey, give me some money because we need to, or sign this petition because we want to close this area up because we don't want those nasty four-wheel drivers and motorbike riders and fossing that, taking all this stuff out and chewing this area up. Look at the damage they're doing here. They get selected photos from who knows where and say they've done all this damage. And people, yeah, why not? Let's get here's a couple $100 and let's sign this petition. And we're going to lock this area up because those vandals shouldn't be allowed in there. But that's not the true story, is it?
So it's interesting the fact that the less populated states are actually doing this. And is it because of the fact that there's a bigger economic reason, the benefits there for four-wheel drive tourism and bush tourism in general, are they more needed? Because from my point of view, and I was speaking to one of the MPs who was at the four-wheel drive show, and I said, why can't we drive on beaches in Victoria? And there's so many Victorians who travel to South Australia just to be able to drive on a beach because it's epic fun. And yet,
yep, definitely,
we can't do it in our state.
Which is ridiculous. I mean, why can it be sustainable to do it at places like Fraser Island, Moreton Island, Stradbroke Island? You've got, all the beaches up and down. You've got Cape York where you're driving on sand. You've got all this stuff in New South Wales. You've got Stockton Bright, which is the largest moving sand dunes in the Southern Hemisphere, which there's recreational vehicle areas you can drive down there. So how come all that can happen there, yet you go to Victoria, as you say, and you can't? It doesn't make sense because, if it's sustainable in other areas, then it should be sustainable in Victoria. So there's definitely a lot of work that should be done. And it's a bit like this Time to Align campaign isn't about the modifications. We've got the same drama happening at state level in regards to access. We've got some states going, yeah, we want more access. Let's get people in here. This is great. Other states going, no, we're going to start locking everybody up and changing it because we're going for that vote. So it is an interesting thing. But once again, this comes about because we have a federal government and we have individual states that have their own authority to do their own thing. What we need to do is look at good things from other states and see if we can get those brought into the states where we have restrictions. So like Victoria and beach driving, why can't we say, well, it's sustainable in Queensland, Western Australia, Northern Territory, New South Wales, South Australia, yet it's not sustainable here? Well, that's really weird. Surely there's some work we can do in this area to open areas up.
Yeah, it is interesting. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the work that you've done with Time to Align?
Yeah, Time to Line was a great campaign. It sort of came out of Queensland, because what we had in Queensland is we had a very unusual happening, and that was that we had the Transport Department saying, look, we're thinking about clarifying some rules around lifts and whatever else. They spoke to the Police Department, and then what happened is that there was negotiations with us and the Forward Drive Queensland and the AAA around lifts and things. And then all of a sudden, nothing had been finalised, yet there was a directive that came out from the Transport Department saying that, we're clarifying this, and on ESC-equipped vehicles, you can either do a 50mm diameter increase in tyre, which is only 25mm lift, 1 inch, or you can do a 2-inch spring lift, and that's it. You can't combine them. Now, all of a sudden, we had most four-wheel drives driving around Queensland illegal, the ones with the new modern-day ones, ESC-equipped vehicles, because even mum and dads that go and buy the Land Cruiser to tow the caravan, they put an upgraded spring kit to tow the caravan, which gives them a lift. And as soon as you go to replace your tyres, you can't buy that size anymore. You have to go up to the next size. So straight away, boom, everybody's illegal. We had a big push. So we worked with AAA, Forward Drive Queensland, and we started pushing back against the TMR in Queensland. And then we'd also looked around at laws around the rest of Australia and thought, well, this is ridiculous, because we had people from New South Wales coming in here getting fined for their lifts that they had on, even though they were completely legal in those other states. So that's where the Time to Line campaign came about. And in Queensland, we actually managed to get the Transport Department to change and go to the fact that you can now have 50mm spring lift and a 50mm diameter tyre increase, the same as New South Wales and other states, without having to get an engineer or getting a swerve test done. So that was a big win. And now we're pushing that through to the next level. We're looking at actually trying to align the states, because it's ridiculous to have a vehicle that's registered in Victoria drive across the border into New South Wales and the people get fined because the rules are different. And that has been happening. There's cases of that, and we've had that happen with caravans, actually, with number plate heights. So it's not just four-wheel drives themselves, it's a whole range of things that had this problem. Now, if you go back to the trucking industry, several years ago they saw this as a problem as well, so they nationalised it, which had some problems, but it fixed most of the problems. It was actually a much better solution. And that's the aim for us, is to look at the best way to get a national approach to this, rather than have the individual states with their own ideas, so that everybody is different. We have to have some basis where we're all similar. So that's what Time to Line is aiming to achieve, and we're getting some great traction out of that, because even the politicians, even the Greens, voted to say that we think it's ridiculous that a car legal in Queensland is illegal in New South Wales, and vice versa. So we've got a lot of traction with that, because it is a stupid law. It's a stupid thing to think that something's legal there and it's not legal over there. So it's definitely grabbing a lot of traction, because it's a logical thing. So watch this space. More is going to be happening about this in this area moving forward.
License plate heights on caravans. Wow.
That's correct, because one thing was in Victoria, they could allow to be a certain height. In New South Wales, that was illegal from to be above a certain height, so people were getting fined.
And because that's the kind of thing that is going to make people less likely, because I would be pretty miffed if I was, travelling to... So Barrington Tops, have been there. It's a beautiful place up there.
Yep, that's awesome. Yep.
Some awesome mud. Yeah, you'd be really miffed, because people generally... That kind of person is not setting out to break the law. They're not driving down the road thinking, oh, I hope this cop doesn't pull me over because I know that my license plate on the caravan is not legal.
It's ridiculous, isn't it? It's a stupid law and stupid difference. That, look, work's been done in that area now and it's very relaxed, but that was what was happening. But the thing is that these things, the police can get a bit out of control, and they start finding people because they have these little campaigns on, and then we've got to put pressure back on to get that removed. We have a case at the moment where one person's tyres have been defected, and it's actually 3mm taller than what it theoretically should be. I mean, there has to be some sort of give and take. I mean, if you look at the speedo on a brand new vehicle, they give them a percentage that they can be inside of accuracy, because no vehicle is exactly accurate in every area. So how can somebody come along and say, oh, this is 3mm wrong, outside of scope, so therefore we're going to fine you for it? In actual fact, you know what? Because it's out like that, we're going to give you an anti-hooning law thing, because you're driving down the road with a tyre 3mm bigger than normal, not doing any hooning, but because you're doing that, we can give you an anti-hooning law. And if we do that 3 times, we'll crush your vehicle. That's a ridiculous law as well.
Completely ridiculous. And have people had trouble with that?
Yes, we've had several people in Queensland that have been done for larger than normal lifts, and they've got an anti-hooning offence from just driving up the road, not breaking the speed limit, nothing else. They got pulled over by a police officer because their lift was a bit higher, or they had no mud, the mud flaps were not in the vehicle. They get fined for the mud flaps, and they throw them an anti-hooning one as well.
Yeah, complete madness.
So there's these discrepancies all through our different states. So that's where they come to some sort of uniformity and some realisation between the states that that basically something legal there should be legal here. And if that's the case, well then we might as well make it legal here in the first place. You know what I mean? Like that's the silly thing, isn't it?
How much more work is there to be done in this space?
Heaps. We're doing lots of work, and we're talking to transport departments, as I say, all around the place, with South Australia, Western Australia now, New South Wales, Queensland. It's happening like all around the place. But we're pushing federally to get this aligned, and we're getting a lot of traction. So what's going to happen, we hope, is that the states themselves realise this is ridiculous and move to align themselves between themselves, because they do have meetings where they all get together. So why not start getting some of these stupid laws aligned so that we don't have these abnormalities and people being fined for 3 millimetre bigger tyres. Number plates, 20 mil higher than what it should be because we've got the tape measure out. We're going to fine you for that. It's ridiculous stuff. It's not safety at all. It's revenue raising, and that's a whole new gamut of things we can talk about there, James.
Well, that does sound like a not insignificant rabbit hole to go down. Because, I come back, is the vehicle less safe if it has those tyres on it? Because shouldn't that be the guiding philosophy behind that legislation?
Yep, and we have actually got information through Freedom of Information to say that there's no statistics to prove that a lifted vehicle with taller tyres is less safe or more likely to have an accident than another vehicle. Nothing at all. The other thing is that I've actually spoken to people at AAA meetings where there's representation from the insurance industry, and the insurance industry people actually say in there, with all their calculations, they actually believe they have less claims for modified vehicles than what they do with vehicles that are unmodified.
See, I find that fascinating because that really goes against the common perception and the rationale for having that legislation.
It does. And if you look at America, have a look at the vehicles you can drive over there legally. And have they got more problems over there?
I would think that there's probably a point, like maybe 14-inch lift is going to make you a little bit less stable, because they can go pretty crazy over there.
You're not seeing on YouTube all these big vehicles falling over, are you?
Once again, that'd be an interesting question for the insurance industry over there. Well, and really, all you need to do is find out how much it is to get a 14-inch lifted vehicle insured, and if it's $5,000, then you're probably paying for that risk.
That's correct. But the other thing also is that, remember, in each state we have engineers. So these are people that the transport departments have said, you are qualified to go out there and look at vehicles and tell us whether they're safe. That's what they're qualified to. That's what they give them a number to say this. So why should they just be saying to these engineers, we're going to leave it up to you to determine what you believe is safe, because you're the person driving the car, you're the person checking it out, you're the person doing the testing. So if you believe that car is safe and it complies with the rules, then why should the TMR complain against it? Why should departments of transport say, well, you're an engineer, but we don't believe what you're saying?
Exactly. Well, it sounds like you've got quite a lot of work to do then with the organisation.
We're busy. We're like reaffirming our position. We're expanding our horizons with users. That's what one of my main aims with Forward Drive Australia. So we get more users involved with Forward Drive Australia, so we're a bigger voice. And from my personal point of view, I believe that things like people like Bug, you and that are people that we should be working with because we've got a common goal. Let's not fight. Let's not infight, because the more we infight, the more power it gives to the Greens to lock things up. So we've got to work as a combined group, even though we may not have exactly the same, beliefs on every single thing. As a whole, we want to maintain access for public. So this access for all is what we're aiming to. That's really what people have got to understand, is that stop infighting and let's just start working towards a common goal and see where we can each help ourselves rather than try and pull another organisation down to make yours maybe better. That's what I think is silly.
Exactly. Is there anything else that individual four-wheel drivers can do?
I think one of the biggest things I'll be doing is every individual four-wheel driver is simply either getting on the phone or writing a simple letter and say, hey, we don't agree with this. You know, if you get all these politicians getting thousands of letters come through, because little people got four-wheel drive saying, we don't agree with this, we don't agree with that, we don't agree with that, you're going to be going, well, this is a big issue, you know. We need to start listening to these people, because these people, you know, won't vote for us if we're not going to start taking heed. So, you know, getting these letters out there, the rally is one thing, but they need to follow this up with a barrage of letters to all your individual, because your individual state-based politicians are the people that get voted in by their electorate. If they get thousands of letters in that door, or phone calls or emails telling them that they're doing the wrong thing, they're going to stand up and listen. Just, you know, especially on the back of the rally after Tuesday, that support and that's what I found worked well in New South Wales. You've got to have a rally, but you've got to back it up with those letters. If you don't do that, then it's like, oh, they had a bit of a thing and nothing else happened about it. We'll forget about it.
The letters, the tagging in on the Facebook,
all that
the
stuff.
phone calls, you know, when you see them, when
Everything.
they're out doing their meet and greet and kissing babies.
Barrage. That's it. Hit them up every time. You know, we've got a problem with this. We've got a problem. If that's continually done, we're going to see a change. People will start, the politicians will start thinking about this. If we just have this thing on Tuesday and nothing else happens, they don't get that coming in afterwards, then the momentum's lost. You know, the idea of a rally is to create the momentum. You then need to build that momentum up.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time today. We've covered a lot of ground, Shane.
Great to chat. It was, yes, definitely. It's been good.
So, yeah, thank you, and good luck with everything that you're trying to do.
Not a problem.
We certainly did cover quite a bit of area with that interview. Lots of topics covered, lots of things to think about. We've got to be thinking about the kind of things that we can be doing as individuals that are going to make a difference when it comes to track access. So think about that the next time there's an election coming around, whether it be council, whether it be state, or whether it's federal. Have it engage with the politicians, even if it is someone that you're not going to vote for. Tell them that this is a topic that you are passionate about and what it is that you want. At the end of the day, politicians work for us. I'm a big believer in the democratic system. We need to be making sure that it's working for us so that our voice gets heard. When that voice gets heard, then hopefully we can stop a track closing. We can maybe get a track opened, and hopefully I can see you on that track one day when we're out four-wheel driving. That's it. Bye.
4x4earth.com is used by over 200,000 people every month to find great tracks, organise trips, and find out how to better enjoy exploring the great outdoors. There's over 1,000 tracks and 300 campsites ready for you to explore. So check out 4x4earth.com today and sign up to get access to the track information, ask questions, and meet other 4x4 Earthers. Membership is completely free. If you're looking for a good route, check out 4x4earth.com today.